On April 30th, 1945, it was confirmed that Adolf Hitler was dead. So what is truth and what is myth? Why do so many still question the official story? Could Hitler have actually escaped Berlin? And if so, how? What does the physical and testimonial evidence really indicate? And why do some conspiracy theorists dismiss the accounts of eyewitnesses who were actually in the bunker? By early February 1945, Hitler had taken permanent refuge in his underground Führer bunker, only appearing publicly a few times after that. On April 20th, he marked his birthday there, surrounded by his closest confidants, some of whom were interviewed. Claims that Hitler escaped are easily challenged. Based on extensive research and first-hand interviews, I aim to dispel the escape theory. Here's how. Those who were with Hitler in the bunker had the clearest perspective on what happened, and their testimonies form the basis of this account. Wilhelm Mohnke, an SS general handpicked by Hitler, was in charge of defending Berlin's central district, including the Reich Chancellery and the bunker complex. Following a court-martial, Hitler reaffirmed that he would not leave the bunker alive. Mohnke's troops were the final line of defense, while General Felix Steiner's units formed the outer perimeter. Rochus Misch, Hitler's bodyguard and phone operator, remembered that when Hannah Reich and Robert von Greim entered the bunker, they had to sit near his desk. Hitler had summoned Greim to replace Göring as Luftwaffe chief. Greim had been wounded in the leg while landing on a street cleared for him by Lieutenant General Hans Bauer. There was speculation that Hitler might escape with them, but when asked, he refused. They pleaded to take the Goebbels children instead, but Magda Goebbels insisted they stay and die with Hitler. Though Dr. Joseph Goebbels wanted them evacuated, he didn't intervene. Dr. Helmut Kuntz allegedly entered the room after the children were given candy and water, and they were killed soon after. I only saw Magda enter, but I could be mistaken. Later, Hitler and Eva Braun were married, already determined to die rather than be captured. Hitler referenced Mussolini's fate and wanted to avoid the same. According to Traudl Junge, Hitler's secretary, a message arrived around 3 a.m. on April 30th. It was from Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, reporting that General Wenck's 12th Army was surrounded. No help was coming. Hitler declared that National Socialism would die with him. Half an hour later, Gerda Christian, Junge, Constanze Manziali and others had tea with Hitler and Eva. He gave them cyanide capsules, then signed orders allowing the staff to flee if they chose. Though some refused, Misch later read aloud the order confirming that Hitler and Eva would end their lives together. Misch said Hitler distrusted the cyanide Himmler had supplied. He had Dr. Werner Haase and Dr. Ludwig Stumpfegger test one on his dog Blondie. It worked, reassuring him. Those close to Hitler were called in to say goodbye. Gerda Christian recalled Hitler and Eva bidding farewell to bunker staff, including Martin Bormann, Joseph Goebbels and family, secretaries and officers. Hitler was adamant he would not be taken alive. At 6 a.m., he asked that Mohnke come see him. Mohnke recounted their meeting. Hitler was briefed that the Soviets were only 300 meters from the Reich Chancellery and no relief would come. Mohnke expected a major attack the next day, May 1st, and told Hitler as much. Hitler praised the troops' efforts and labelled Göring, Himmler and certain generals as traitors. Later, Gerda Christian said she heard a faint sound, like a muffled shot. Soon after, Heinz Linger announced that Hitler and Eva were dead. She entered the room and saw a small bloodstain on the carpet by the sofa. Otto Güntscher, another bodyguard, said that as per Hitler's instructions, they took the bodies upstairs and burned them using gasoline. The same was later done for the Goebbels family. Hans Bauer wasn't present at the time of Hitler's death. He had been preparing a possible airstrip for escape, but doubted Hitler would ever leave. When he returned, the cremation had already begun. He was told what had occurred, and that's all he knew firsthand. Rochus Misch added that General Hans Krebs then began negotiations with the Soviets. Krebs would only have done so if Hitler were truly dead. Bormann asked Misch to send a message to Admiral Karl Dönitz, and Bormann later tried to flee with Bauer and others. General Wilhelm Burgdorf, Krebs, and Dr. Stumpfegger remained in the bunker. After the Goebbels couple died, attempts were made to burn their bodies indoors, but lack of oxygen made it difficult. Magda Goebbels took her life in the same room where her children had died. Bergdorf and Krebs both shot themselves on May 1st. Dr. Ludwig Stumpfegger left with a group that included Bormann, Bauer, Walter Huell, and Arthur Axmann, the Hitler Youth leader. Axmann and Bauer were eventually captured. Bauer's leg was amputated following torture for information on Hitler's fate. Axmann evaded capture for several months, living under the alias Erich Sievert, until his arrest in December 1945 in Lübeck. The US Army uncovered his connection during a Nazi underground investigation. Axmann claimed Hitler shot himself in the mouth, causing damage to his dental structure, which prevented easy identification. In May 1949, the Nuremberg Tribunal sentenced Axmann to just over 3 years in prison as a major Nazi figure, but he wasn't convicted of war crimes. Misch was imprisoned in the Soviet Union until December 1953, enduring a year in solitary confinement with torture in efforts to extract information. The case was thought resolved in 2009 when US forensic experts revealed that a skull fragment kept in Soviet archives wasn't Hitler's. It belonged to a woman. But that wasn't the real evidence. On April 30th, 1945, it was officially declared that Adolf Hitler was dead. But even now, decades later, people still ask,
what's real and what's fiction?
could Hitler have somehow escaped from Berlin? If he did, how could that have been possible?
What does the actual evidence reveal?
Why do some continue to question the eyewitness testimonies from those who were actually there, inside the bunker? Let's begin in early February 1945. By then, Hitler had permanently retreated into the underground Führer bunker beneath Berlin. From that point forward, he only surfaced a handful of times, and even then, only briefly. On April 20th, his birthday, he celebrated in the bunker, surrounded by his closest inner circle. Some of those individuals I personally interviewed over the years. Their accounts have never wavered. Despite persistent conspiracy theories, the idea that Hitler escaped is not only improbable, it's contradicted by direct testimony and hard forensic evidence. After decades of research and conversations with surviving witnesses, I aim to dismantle the Hitler escape myth, step by step. Those present in the bunker were in the best position to tell the truth about what actually happened, and their names are preserved in the historical record. Wilhelm Mohnke, a high-ranking SS general, was personally appointed by Hitler to defend the central district of Berlin, including the Reich Chancellery and the Führer bunker itself. According to Mohnke, after the failed court-martial of General Fegelein, Hitler again declared that he would never leave the bunker alive. Mohnke's troops were the final defenders.
Beyond them was Felix Steiner's force, the last outer ring of resistance. Rokas Misch, Hitler's personal bodyguard and phone operator, recalled a key moment.
When Hanna Reich and General Robert von Greim entered the bunker, they were seated right beside his communications desk. Greim had been flown in under heavy fire, wounded in the leg during a landing arranged by Hans Bauer, Hitler's pilot, who had cleared a street in Berlin to act as a temporary runway. Hitler intended to name Greim as the new Luftwaffe chief, replacing Hermann Göring, whom he now considered a traitor. There was speculation that Hitler might flee with them. Greim and Reich both urged him to come with them, to escape. But Hitler refused, flat out. They begged again, if not him, at least the Goebbels children. Let the children live. But Magda Goebbels intervened. She said no, they would all die there, with Hitler. Strangely, Dr. Joseph Goebbels had expressed a desire to save the children, but he didn't resist his wife's decision. In the end, he said nothing.
I was told that Dr. Helmut Kuntz went into the children's room after they were given candy and something to drink. They were poisoned. I personally only saw Magda go in, but perhaps I missed something. I could be wrong. I always wondered. Not long after, Hitler and Eva Braun were married.
It was a quiet ceremony, deep below the surface of Berlin, and they both knew what would come next. Death, not capture. Hitler often spoke of Mussolini's end, the humiliation of his body being strung up. He was determined never to meet that fate. According to Taudel Junge, Hitler's private secretary, a key message arrived in the early hours of April 30th, around 3 a.m. It was from Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel. He informed Hitler that General Wenck's 12th Army had been surrounded. No reinforcements would be coming. Hitler responded coldly, "National Socialism will die with me." Later that morning, Gerda Christian, Junge, and Constanze Manziali shared tea with Hitler and Eva Braun. It was quiet. He handed each of them cyanide capsules to avoid capture. He then signed orders, allowing all of them, secretaries, doctors, officers, to leave should they choose. Some refused, others packed quietly. Rokas Misch remembered reading Hitler's final orders aloud. He told those gathered, "Eva and I will die together." One last issue worried Hitler, the cyanide itself. He didn't trust the capsules Himmler had provided. So, he asked Dr. Haase and Dr. Stumpfegger to test one, on his dog, Blondie. It worked. The dog collapsed. Hitler, watching, felt reassured. Soon after, bunker staff were summoned one by one to say their farewells. Hitler and Eva embraced each of them. He thanked Martin Bormann, Joseph Goebbels, and others. His secretaries, his generals, his aides. He meant to die, and everyone knew it. At 6 a.m., Hitler called for Mohnke again. They met in Hitler's private bedroom. Mohnke told him the truth. The Soviets were just 300 meters from the Reich Chancellery. No help was coming. No escape remained. He also warned that a massive Russian assault would come the next morning, May 1st, symbolic for the Soviets. Hitler nodded. "It's over," he said. He praised Mohnke's men and expressed bitter betrayal toward Goering, Himmler, and others he now saw as traitors. Later, Gerda Christian heard a sharp but muffled sound, like a single shot. She thought little of it at first. Moments later, Heinz Linger entered and told them, "The Führer and Eva are dead." When the door was opened, their bodies had already been moved. Gerda Christian entered Hitler's office. On the floor, beside the sofa, was a bloodstain, about the size of a hand. Otto Günsche said that following Hitler's orders, they carried both bodies up to the garden above. There, they poured gasoline, benzene, on them and lit the fire. Misch later added that General Krebs then went to the communications room and began negotiating surrender with the Russians. That alone, he said, proves Hitler was dead. Krebs would not have dared to negotiate unless the Führer was gone. Martin Bormann had Misch send one final message to Admiral Dönitz, appointing him as successor. Then Bormann fled, alongside Bauer, Stumpfegger, and others. Krebs and General Wilhelm Burgdorf remained behind. After the Goebbels suicides, they tried to burn the bodies, but there wasn't enough oxygen inside the bunker. Magda Goebbels took her life upstairs, in the same room where her children had died. Krebs and Burgdorf later shot themselves. Dr. Stumpfegger left the bunker with a small group: Bormann, Bauer, Walter Huell, Arthur Axmann, leader of the Hitler Youth. Axmann and Bauer were both captured. Bauer's leg had to be amputated. He was tortured for information about Hitler. Axmann evaded arrest for several months, living under the alias Erich Sievert. He was finally caught in December 1945, when American intelligence dismantled a Nazi underground cell in Lübeck. Axmann told his captors that Hitler had likely shot himself through the mouth, explaining the damage to his face. He also claimed the remains couldn't be clearly identified because the bullet had destroyed key dental features. In May 1949, Axmann was sentenced to 3 years and 3 months as a major Nazi figure, but was not convicted of war crimes. Misch was imprisoned by the Soviets until 1953. His first year was spent in solitary confinement, undergoing regular torture as they tried to extract information. In 2009, a US forensic team made headlines when they tested a skull fragment from Soviet archives and found it didn't belong to Hitler. It belonged to a woman, but that fragment never mattered. In 2018, French scientists analyzed fragments of Hitler's teeth stored in Russian archives. The study, published in the European Journal of Internal Medicine, confirmed that the teeth were authentic. Hitler's dentist, Dr. Hugo Blaschke, had kept meticulous notes. Untreated cavities, cracked teeth, discolored roots, 2 dental bridges, 1 cracked incisor. The records matched perfectly. Photos of the jaw showed mostly metal, with only 4 original teeth remaining. Brown, misaligned, flecked with tartar. Unmistakable. Blue traces on the metal may have been a reaction to cyanide, either at the moment of death, during cremation, or while buried. Blaschke's interrogation matched the post-mortem dental analysis in every key detail. Even though the skull fragment wasn't Hitler's, it never needed to be. There were dozens of corpses in the garden above the bunker, men and women. That fragment could have easily belonged to Eva Braun or Magda Goebbels. In 2018, a Russian interpreter revealed that she had been given a set of teeth in 1945 and asked to compare them to Hitler's dental records. She did. They matched, completely. As Dr. Philippe Charlier, co-author of the 2018 study, said, "There is absolutely no doubt. Our study proves that Hitler died in 1945. The teeth are genuine." And yet, conspiracy theories live on. A declassified CIA document shows that even in 1955, a decade after the war, the agency still pursued rumors that Hitler had escaped to Argentina. An SS informant claimed to see him monthly in Colombia, a story later proven false. Other rumors placed him aboard U-530, a submarine that surrendered in Argentina months after the war. But Hitler was not on board. Others suggested he flew with Leon de Grelle to Spain, but that plane crashed. All occupants were identified. Hitler was not one of them. In the end, all evidence, forensic, testimonial, and historical, confirms one thing. Adolf Hitler died in Berlin, in his bunker, on April 30th, 1945. The story of his escape is just that, a story.